Hombre, take one.
Hi, I'm John Major for After Hours. We're here at the clubhouse of the Maltose Falcons.
Everybody at this table is a certified beer judge. We've all taken the national exam.
3 sections that you're tested on. It's knowledge of brewing styles, knowledge of the brewing process and how it affects different styles, and knowledge of the judging process itself.
I think very shortly after the club was formed, they were having contests and they were breaking things down into simple categories.
So beer styles was a big part of what the competition committee was supposed to do, because we wanted to organize it.
They wrote the original style guidelines, and for the BJCP, the Maltose Falcons style guidelines, they weren't written in any other form, whether it be the BJCP or the Association of Brewers or anything else. It was the Falcons were the first ones. The principal author is Bruce Brode.
Bruce Brode sat down and wrote most of the basic styles out. There was maybe 10 or 12 at that time. And those got used as the basis for the BJCP categories. We were actually defining these things. We were going out, we were finding examples of beers, or somebody would bring some back from Europe, which was a really cool thing. You know, you look at the Maltose Falcon style guidelines today, they are very detailed and really on top of the mark compared to, say, like the state homebrew competition or the BJCP. So actually, I'm quite proud that I was participating in those early days.
At one point in time, we were very, very close with the folks over at Anheuser-Busch Budweiser.
So we invited them down to the brewery. I was very excited. I'll remember that day. I went down and met them, but I felt a tenseness in the air. I was part of the evil empire, you know, and I didn't think of myself as that anyway. But Doug was kind of like a father confessor. He had so much love for brewing that it overflowed from him. I'll just call it the grace of brewing. He just overflowed with it.
And one year, we had the beer tasting at my house on his birthday. So we ordered those really big party pizzas. And he just was so thrilled that somebody had done something for him.
Happy birthday, dear Doug. Happy birthday to you.
Well, then Doug came up to me and said, you were saying how hard it is to brew Budweiser. I said, it's the hardest beer to brew. There is literally no room for error. So he said, would you let us brew it? I said, sure. I didn't even ask permission.
This one, Kevin and myself and a couple other people, we emptied out his apartment and then, dispersed his stuff.
I have his mash paddle, which is what I brew with every time.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I gotta say, MB, and I'm looking at this guy over here right now. But Doug sounds a lot like Kevin.
Yeah, a little bit.
In some ways, yeah.
A little bit.
Were you inspired by him? Did you get?
Oh yeah. No, I've always felt the same way about the club. It's just, after I was telling him it'll be 31 years next month's meeting, so it's been a long time of, volunteering and helping out and doing what's best for the club. And Doug did the same, in the time that he was in with us too. He helped out a lot. That's how he died, helping us out.
And then Doug said, well, we're going to brew some of these beers, and when they're done, would you mind evaluating them for me? And I said, sure, right? And when they walked away, I said, this is going to fail miserably, because when they're trying to taste these, they're going to see that they've got some off notes and everything. Well, Doug calls me back about a month later and says, we've got some beers we want you to try.
One of the folks at Anheuser-Busch actually took our beer where they evaluated it. It was like spot on.
They looked at the analysis and I said, it was very good. The diacetals were real low. Everything looked really good. And they were high-fiving. I said, no, we haven't tasted it yet. I had 10 samples lined up at our taste room for each of the people that were there, including me. And they said, well, which one's mine? I said, I'm not going to tell you that. They're mixed in here. Well, what they found out was when they got to theirs, the off notes just popped. Well, at that point, we were like really good friends at that point. But his was called Dougweiser. I still remember that. And then when Doug was killed, I was devastated. That was just really hard for me. I just knew him because we both changed hearts And it was amazing that changed the hearts the way we did.
Doug taught me how to basically make better beer by going all grain. Yep. He was a good friend and a damn good brewer. Just a nice guy. I'm kidding.
You're here. You're here. Cheers.
The story also takes us to the world-famous UCLA Medical Center. That's where Mary Beth Raines works. She's a world-famous biochemist in cancer research.
Dr. Mary Beth Raines, or MB, I would say is, and has been, I think, my mentor, a little bit of my idol. She's the ultimate expert in yeast.
Mary Beth, you see, is published as discovering a molecule that may aid in the treatment of cancer.
These are leukemia cells here.
Mary Beth is also California's newest, hottest brewmeister. How does one go from doing cancer research to brewing beer?
Now it's all about love.
This is a story about sex.
Robust, full body, gorgeous head.
And beer. It's about a rising Hollywood star.
I was amazed because here was a woman, very smart, very, very talented scientist.
I'm a woman too, and women are just into empowerment. I'm sorry. I've been empowering women as long as I can remember.
She taught the Maltose Falcons, she shared her knowledge, and she brewed a great beer called Hollywood Blonde.
I'm all about empowerment. I guess that's my willingness to teach. The more people share, the better quality product that's out there.
She taught me a lot about brewing. She helped empower myself as a female brewer.
Bond and talk about life and beer and you name it.
That and making beer is what's going on here in Mary Beth Raines' Southern California backyard. An avid home brewer, Raines plays host to an all-women's brew club.
We call ourselves the Grain Goddesses.
Lots of women have always loved beer, but the proliferation of microbreweries and at-home setups is making converts out of others.
I never really liked beer until I tasted good homebrew.
She drove having women brew days.
Inventing recipes and naming them is half the fun. This one was made from leftover wedding cake.
We called it Till Death Do Us Part Stout.
Let's see if we can get married at Anchor. Well, Fritz wouldn't let us get married in the brewery because he didn't believe that breweries and weddings mixed. So we're like, okay, we're just going to get married on the street corner outside of Anchor.
We are gathered here today to celebrate the union and marriage of Stephen and Mary Beth.
So had the ceremony outside by candlelight, and then went in and had the party at Anchor, and then Bob Brewer and Anchor had made a chocolate cake. I ended up taking that wedding cake, the leftover cake, I brought it back. I decided to make a beer with it.
She will always give you the most honest opinion as far as if your beer's good or not. But that's really helpful, and that's the way you learn.
It truly was a giving exercise. They gave of themselves. They had no thought that they were ever going to get any compensation other than just the good feelings that they got from helping others. And MB was one of those people.
My strongest memories are the Southern California Homebrew Festival. I just remember sitting around campfires, MB Raines, and camping with Maltose Falcons.
MB was like the consummate scientist and really understood about yeast and everything. I believe she gave a talk about it at that festival.
Talking yeast, talking beer. And then what the Maltose Falcons did, I think, was lead with a lot of the conversation that I would have to think about. Pitching rates, starters, immediately on what other kinds of yeast I should have.
I think the weirdest thing that ever happened was the guys from the Durden Park Circle, which are these old homebrewers making really strong beers in England. A guy wrote me a love letter. He said, he sent it to the AHA and said, "Fuck Madonna, how I fell in love with Mary Beth Raines and her yeast culturing kit." So he sent me this letter and then came to visit me.
You know, the Southern California Homebrew Festival was partially the brainchild of Maltose Falcons, actually. Jerry Stoker, who was the activities director in the early 90s, came up with the idea and kind of sold it to some other clubs.
What do you think of the Maltose Falcons, Harry?
Well, they're a eclectic group of sophisticated brewers that put lots of effort and knowledge into the home brewing hobby, and actually they're pretty good partiers too.
Yeah!
I'll attest to that.
Oh, and John Aitchison also is another stalwart of the club, and he has a lot of knowledge. When it comes to the brewing process and ingredients, he's probably still up on the ingredients like nobody else.
I teach brewing classes. I teach people to brew. I teach people to judge.
84 in those days. I think Marty Vellas. I think Bruce Porchal. I learned a lot from him. The people that were coming in, when Steve Castleman became president, and Porchal, they were all about sharing. They were all about, we're doing this because we want to learn and we want it to be good, So I think those are the people that I really learned from.
Every bit of my interaction with the club was to make me a better brewer, and it always did. Even when somebody would tell me how bad my beer was, that was really, helpful, because then I went and I made the beer again and it turned out better every time.
I learned how to make mead and beer from people that are pretty good at it, and I ended up making better things than they did. So hopefully, if I can pass my knowledge on to other people, they can make better things than I do.
It's all extending the knowledge because it expands the craft.
We really were supportive of it, and I'll tell you really why. Because the passion came from the home brewers, came from me as a home brewer. It came, the whole thing that's happened with the craft brewing movement is really about passion and love of brewing and brewing beers and helping each other.
I would help anybody. If anybody asked me a question, I'm not hiding anything from them, and nobody in the club ever would. We all have the same passion for making good beer.
Newbies, as they were, they come in and real fast they become not newbies because of the fact that they learn a whole lot, and then you start learning from the newbies.
Part of the passion for the art of brewing. Everybody wants to make everybody else good at it. It improves the beers that they get to taste at meetings, and it improves the beers they get to make themselves.
It takes a lot of failures to make successes, and that's the important part, is that people were willing to be humble. I think for the most part, people had a lot of gratitude about the knowledge base that was there, the people that really knew what they were doing because they A, studied it, and B, lived it.
You want to make the very best beer you can make. I think we can make as good or a better beer than any commercial breweries. I want to help people learn to brew the best beer they can possibly brew. And at the same time, when they judge, I want them to be as good of a judge as their senses will allow them to be.
So as far as Falcons being more than just brew friends and all that, you hold up our finger right here. Craig Wickham, one of the best people in the universe, actually designed our wedding rings for us, made them up, and he just asked what we wanted and designed it. And what can you say? A wedding ring by one of your Falcon friends. It's incredible. So I married my best Falcon.
When you join a club like the Falcons, you feel like you're part of a family.
I think one of the great things about the Falcons is it becomes like family.
So I'm going to get verklempt if I talk about beer and family, or beer and homebrewers as family. See, I'm going to get verklempt now. Ooh. I think people think of beer as a vice. It's always been considered liquid courage, but I think it's kind of like a cool blanket, and it wraps us all up, and you can be who you are with your family that you choose, and I think I've chosen a pretty good family.
I've been away from Los Angeles since 2011. I am finding myself in a situation where I'm relocating back. And one of the first things I've done is reach back out to the Falcons to get back involved again. And I felt very welcome in doing that. I feel like it's a place that in a group that I can come home to.
But for some reason, beer is such a social event. You talk about your kids, you talk about whatever. When those of us who are into beer quite a bit, the subject of beer itself always comes up. I mean, it's driven my wife crazy.
There's so much happiness in life by just giving everything away. The Maltose Falcons, the reason I like them, the reason Doug King was the way he was, they shared everything and they got so much more back. They got way more back than they gave away. And I think that's what the success of the Falcons was. They were humble and very generous people.
For the Maltose Falcons 2024 meat tasting, cheers to 50 years! Woo!